Mist drifts over the slow ribbon of a river winding through green slopes at daybreak, pale light tracing silver ripples as reeds whisper back and forth. A lone ferryman in a rough-spun cloak rows gently toward the opposite bank, his oar dipping with the hush of unfolding morning. A folded linen sack rests beside him, filled with sheafs of grain destined for distant hearths. The scent of damp moss and barley fills the air as he glides beneath ancient willows, their low branches dipping to kiss the water's surface. Each stroke is steady, deliberate, a silent promise carried in wood and muscle. On the riverbank, a child kneels beside a woven basket, her fingers sifting through smooth pebbles while listening to the faint lilt of a distant bell from a stone chapel. Her woolen shawl rustles in a breath of wind, and she glances upward as a small white bird skims overhead, tracing the river's path toward the unknown. In that moment, river and sky seem entwined in a soft hymn of belonging, as if the world itself exhales with quiet joy. The ferryman lands, stepping out onto soft mud, and lifts the linen sack from his boat. He sets it before the child, who thanks him with a nod and a shy smile. Together they stretch the sack's contents onto a nearby board, golden kernels glowing in autumn light. The river flows on behind them, steady and unseen, shaping a quiet rhythm for the village's days. And as the ferryman pushes off again, the child gathers the grain, small seeds of comfort on the sleepy edges of this medieval dawn. A mid-morning haze rests on the river's curve as sunlight filters through thick elm canopies, casting dancing patterns on the water's glassy surface. A cloaked monk stands at the river's edge, holding a wooden ladle carved with simple crosses. He lifts it to scoop water into a clay jug, water destined for morning prayers in the abbey's quiet cloister. The air is cool with dew and rich with the scent of wild herbs lining the bank. A dragonfly drifts across his robes, its wings catching the light before settling near the jug's rim. Behind him, low stone arches of a medieval footbridge rise, draped in ivy that hangs like silent curtains. A woman carrying a bundle of linen crosses it slowly, pausing to watch the monk's ritual. In that glance passes centuries of faith and routine. Beneath them, the river's current murmurs against mossy rocks, as though speaking in ancient tongues. The monk dips his ladle again, filling the jug to the brim. He bows his head, acknowledging the gift of this water, clear, patient, life-sustaining. The woman crosses her arms, listening to the river's hymn. The world breathes in this connection between stone and water, faith and flow, routine and grace. And as the monk lifts the jug to his shoulder, the river continues its gentle shaping of all it touches. Afternoon sunlight glimmers through a rough timber boathouse where fishermen mend nets by the river's edge, threads of linen spread across low benches. Their fingers knot cord with steady care, the mesh whispering in soft loops beneath their hands. The scent of fish brine mingles with sweet grass and warm smoke from a small brazier. Outside, the river flows broad and deep, hinting at gentle journeys and hidden bends. A barefoot child runs her fingers through the gills of a newly caught carp, its scales cool and glinting in the light. She hums a lullaby, her voice low and reverent. Near her, a dog lies curled beside a basket of churned butter, ears flicking at the river's distant song. Every sound here, soft splash, creak of wood, murmured lullaby, threads together in a tapestry of calm purpose. As dusk nears, fishermen lift their nets into the boat, and the child closes her hymn. The river accepts each gift, water, fish, memory, and soon night will deepen upon its surface. For now, each knot and hum and breath lingers in that twilight pause, woven into the river's quiet shaping of lives by its sleepy edges. A silver moon flickers overhead as the river winds past fields of oat and barley, blown flat in pale moonlight. An elderly farmer stands knee-deep in water, barefoot in mud, planting young willow stakes for future basket weaving. He moves slowly, guided by instinct older than maps, bending each slender shoot with reverence. The air is cool, scented by riparian flowers and warm earth beneath the night's hush. Nearby, fireflies hover above damp grass, reflecting in the water like distant stars. The farmer hums a quiet tune, old as his bones, and the river answers in rippled verse. He lifts his hand to steady a notch-fed lantern, its glow soft as candle-washed parchment. In that luminous moment, river, light, and man become one gentle offering. He finishes his planting and steps back onto the riverbank, boots scraping wet clay. The moon catches his beard, silvering his chin. He stands still then, breathing in the night, tracing the river's path as if proof that time flows onward, patient, certain, enduring. And in that breath, every planted shoot becomes a living verse in the long poem of this peaceful countryside. Morning fog lifts slowly from the river as crows circle above a silent ferry landing, their calls weaving into the dawn's breath. A young woman in a patched cloak sets out bread and cheese on a small plank table by the bank. Inside a linen pouch, clusters of dried berries rest. She unwraps them carefully, placing each piece beside the meal as if preparing an offering. A fisherman steps off the boat, stepping upon stones gently placed at the water's edge. He pauses amid the table, nods to the woman, then sits. They eat in quiet harmony. Bread, cheese, berries, simple fare shared beside the river's soft passage. Their breaths drift in the mist, their knives glinting faintly. Between bites, the river hums, filling silence with soft continuity. When they finish, the woman gathers the crumbs into a wooden bowl and casts them into the water. The crumbs scatter like small birds across the surface. The fisherman catches their reflected shapes and smiles. The river carries those fragments onward, offering them across the countryside. In that act, food and gesture and water become one slow benediction, shared nourishment for both body and soul. Late afternoon sun warms a quiet riverside meadow where reeds rustle like whispered prayers. A scribe sits beneath a willow, parchment unrolled on his lap, quill poised in hand. He listens to the soft sigh of the current and dips the quill into ink made from oak galls and iron. Each stroke records a memory of the river, its bends, its moods, its faithful passage through seasons. A heron steps through the shallows across from him, lifting its long neck and then gliding away, wings brushing water like silk. The scribe pauses, lifts his gaze and smiles softly before returning to his parchment. Beneath the willow's boughs, fallen leaves drift down and settle on his cloak, staining his sleeve faintly gold. He writes of this moment, a weaving of bird song, water hush, and inked memory, knowing his words may outlast him. As evening deepens, he rolls the parchment, tucks it into his satchel, and rises. The sun dips, painting water and sky in mellow hues. He closes his eyes, listening to the river's steady chiaroscuro, and steps back along the path. In his memory lies the river's quiet shaping, story by story, season by season. The sky deepens to a mellow amber as twilight drapes the countryside in softened hues, and the river winds with a hush past an orchard long forgotten. Beneath a flowering plum tree, a woman kneels beside a weathered wooden tub, her sleeves rolled as she washes linen with a bar of lavender soap. The cloth floats gently in the water, catching the last light like a ghost of the day's labor. Each movement of her hands is slow, tender, rinsing, folding, breathing in the scent of evening bloom and wet fabric. Behind her, bees retreat to hives tucked into a low stone wall, their buzzing replaced by the trickle of water slipping past moss-covered roots. From a nearby hut, the dim flicker of firelight dances through the doorway. Someone stirs porridge or closes shutters for the night. The woman hums a lullaby, not for anyone in particular, but because the river listens. The melody drifts over the current like a blessing, softening the air, touching even the gnats that hover in gold flecks above the tub. She lifts the last cloth, wrings it with care, and drapes it over a low branch to dry. Droplets fall and vanish into the grass. Her hands pause then, resting against the rim of the tub as the day's hush settles fully around her. She gazes toward the river, now brushed in silver threads, and watches as a pair of ducks glide across its surface, steady, side by side. In that fading light, their movement seems to mirror her breath, slow, faithful, unspoken. And as she gathers her things and walks back toward the fire, the river continues its song, unbroken, carrying the day's quiet stories along its sleepy, winding path, still shaping lives, still softening the edges of time.